I'm out on trading a first-rounder for Brandon Aiyuk, at least a 2025 first-rounder, which is something we had actually started talking about early in the week before Aiyuk even demanded a trade. You can't give up a potential top 5, top 10 pick for Aiyuk. You can't do it. And you can say, well, I mean, who's going to be better than Aiyuk? Well, maybe, but you got to turn around and give Aiyuk 27, 28, $30 million a year. I think Rap Sheet went on to say he'll probably make a little less than Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit, which we'll see. But I think he's at $28 million a year, so high 20s, maybe $30 million a year for Aiyuk. I feel like I can get a better receiver if that's what I want with my first-round pick, or a better player elsewhere on the roster, and I'd rather have a top 5 or a top 10 pick. So how do you get Aiyuk? Would the Niners take a 2026 first-rounder? I don't know why they would when another team can give him a pick more immediately. Would they take a second and Matthew Judon, or a second and a third that's a conditional third that could move up to a second-round pick? Maybe. I mean, you can play that game. But bottom line, the Patriots are in a weird spot where I wouldn't offer my first-round pick if I were them, and I highly doubt they would. And if another team offers a 2025 first-rounder, even in the 20s, that's going to beat your pick. So you're not going to have the best offer. So how do you get them? And furthermore, Arkan, do you even want him? Interesting text rolled in at 37937. Guys, should the Patriots be interested in someone like Aiyuk? He's disgruntled in San Fran, and they just made a Super Bowl. What's going to happen when he comes to New England and they suck? So
he's not upset with the way they play in San Francisco. It's not his problem.
I think he'd be fine with coming to New England and being terrible. He's going to make $30 million a year.
Money, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And so, he's upset at his contract. He's not upset at how they use him or his targets. And if you're operating in the world of the number one stud receiver, you have to just hold your nose and put up with some of that. You have to throw them the football, keep them involved in the offense, compensate them. And that's just the world you got to live in. And I'm okay with doing that for a real premium talent. That's not my concern with Aiyuk. The complaining about the contract, in theory, you're giving him that and he'll be happy.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he's a pain in the ass. I don't know. Like Steph Diggs was a pain in the ass at the end in Buffalo, and they were a good team too. And it wasn't because, he wanted more money. I think he wanted to be more involved in the offense, even though he was getting all the passes. There's different levels of pain in the ass when it comes to wide receivers or any big position like that. But just while we're on the subject here, on that ESPN wide receiver list, Brandon Aiyuk is 10th. He is a top 10 wide receiver in the league by the, executive scouts and coaches and everybody else who make up those lists. So that's how he's regarded in the league. A top 10 wide receiver. I think you do have to give up a first-round pick.
Yeah, so give me the list. Give me the list. I don't have it in front of
me. Coming in at number 1, Justin Jefferson.
Agreed.
Number 2, Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
Number 3, Jamar Chase.
Okay.
Number 4, CeeDee Lamb.
Okay. Oh, I would have Lamb higher, but whatever. We're nitpicking. Yep.
5, Devontae Adams.
Okay. Too high.
6, A.J. Brown.
Okay.
7, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Too low.
8, Mike Evans.
Probably about right. Yep.
9, Steph Diggs.
Way too high for Diggs. Keep going.
10, Aiyuk.
Okay.
Your honorable mentions are Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Nico Collins, Amari Cooper, and DJ Moore. Also receiving votes.
So I would have I like Deebo better than Aiyuk. That's one that I would have higher on that list. But whatever, we can quibble about where he is. Is T. Higgins anywhere on that list or no?
Yes, T. Higgins was also receiving votes along with Metcalf, Keenan Allen, McLaurin, Ridley, Puka Nacua, Pickens, Olave, Pittman, Hopkins, and Sutton.
Okay, interesting. So Ridley is right around 20, maybe a little outside the top 20. Which sounds about right. He'd be a number 1 on this team. He's probably a number 2 on a really good team. But that's interesting where Ridley came in. Aiyuk over Higgins. I'm not sure everybody agrees with that, but I do. Aiyuk is a top 10-ish receiver. I would largely agree with that. And so how often are those guys going to come available? I don't know. But give me the list again. Start at the top. Who's number 1? Jefferson? Picked at 22, I believe, off the top of my head. Who's number 2?
Tyreek Hill.
Okay, he was like a 5th-round pick. Keep going.
Something like that, yeah. Jamar Chase, number 3.
That was a top 5 pick, something like that.
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb was a first-rounder, but I believe in the 20s, maybe the teens. Yep.
Okay, Adams.
Adams was a second-round pick.
A.J. Brown.
Second-round pick.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Fourth-round pick.
I think, yes. Mike Evans.
Very high first-round pick, like a top 10 pick.
Steph Diggs.
Okay, Diggs was like a 5th-rounder?
I don't remember where he
I think that's right. Who was number 10?
And number 10's Aiyuk.
Aiyuk is in the 20s. So, look, what I would say is, yeah, he's a top 10 receiver, but look at where those top 10 receivers came from. Mike Evans was the only real high draft capital.
Too, yeah.
I'm sorry, and Chase, you're right. So 2 out of the top 10 were like real high investments, top 10 picks. In the case of Chase, I think he was the number 5 pick off the top of my head. Some of those, there were more guys outside of in the 5th round than there were. And so I think you can find receivers in today's day and age. I want the Patriots to get one. They had one. All they had to do was pay him. They didn't have to give up a pick in Calvin Ridley. Let me ask it that way, Arkin. Would I rather give up a first-round pick and pay Brandon Aiyuk or just pay Calvin Ridley? I would rather just pay Calvin Ridley. I don't think the gap between those two is that massive. Aiyuk is a better player, but I don't think the gap is so massive that I got to throw in a first-round pick when I could have had Ridley for nothing.
Yeah.
Just cash.
That's it. And that's a big part of this and a big part of why I would rather, if it was, a first-round pick and you're picking in the top 5 or top 10 even, I'd rather just draft a kid. Draft a wide receiver. I think it's a new day right now in the wide receiver world. I think that you now have, in the first round, a lot of these guys coming out. They're much more highly coveted now, I think, than they have been in years past, even in the last, 5 years. So I'd rather just pick a guy high and have that money, have that rookie contract, not have to trade anything, not have to, move on, give $30 million, any of that stuff, and you could just do it that way. But if it's between that and paying money for an established guy like Calvin Ridley, of course you'd rather just pay the money. Of course you would.
That's my feeling on it. And so, look, I've been saying this for a while. As much as I was mocking the wide receiver list, I'm like, the Patriots don't have anybody there. I've actually started to talk myself into their receiver room a little bit. And the draft capital on Jalen Polk and the early returns on him. And I haven't seen him yet, but I've heard good things from minicamp. Let's see at training camp. Let's see in joint practices. Let's see him preseason. Obviously, let's see when the real games start and they actually start playing. But I like what I've heard, and I like the investment. So I've started to talk myself into that room a little bit because 37, that's a pick that could hit. I mean, look at where A.J. Brown was taken. Look at some of the other guys in the second round that we were discussing before. Deebo Samuel, Aiyuk at the end of the first round. Look at where some of those guys went. That's in that same territory as Jalen Polk. They have to get it right. A lot of receivers went around there. Maybe it's Ladd McConkey, and it's not Jalen Polk. Maybe it's Keon Coleman, and it's not Jalen Polk. But I'm starting to talk myself into him a little bit and their room. That doesn't mean they have one of the top 30 receivers in the NFL.